Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Fantasy Tipped. Today we're talking about the fantasy overview of the Chicago Blackhawks. Let's get started and jump right into their line. On that first line we have Alex DeBrincat, Jonathan Toews, and Dominik Kubalik. On that second line, Doc will be the center, Patrick Kane will be the right winger, and on the left wing it could be a number of people. It could be Pius Suter, it could be Brendan Peary, it could even be Andrew Shaw. On that third line, I think it'll be Nylander, Strome, and Shaw, and if Shaw was on that second line, it would be one of the other two guys that I put there on that second line. On the power play, it'll be Kirby Dach, Jonathan Toews, Patrick Kane, Duncan Keith, and Dominik Kubalik. On that second power play, it should be Nylander, Strome, DeBrincat, Boqvist, and Mitchell. Alright guys, so let's jump right into my do not draft list, and first on the list is Andrew Shaw. And honestly, Shaw is a decent player, right? He's usually going to get you about a point every 2 games, and he hits a decent amount too. So for fantasy purposes, he's not too bad. The issue is he's really dealt with a lot of injuries lately, and it looks like he's going to be good to go for the start of the 2021 season. But do I trust it? I don't think so. I think he's a little bit too injury prone for my liking, and he will likely get injured again, as much as I hate to say it. For this reason, I'm going to be staying away from Andrew Shaw. Second on this list is Malcolm Subban, currently ranked 277 overall, and for me, even though that's a pretty low ranking, that's still way too high. Malcolm Subban will likely be the backup in Chicago. He did not play well last year. His save percentage was .89, and the team hasn't really gotten better, so I can't really see how he does much better than he did last year. He might get half the games if he's lucky because of the condensed schedule, but I don't really trust Malcolm Subban as a goalie on your team. So next on this list is Alexander Nylander, and unfortunately for him, he just got injured and now requires surgery on his knee, which will make him out for 4 to 6 months. So he'll pretty much miss the entire season. And even before that, I wasn't too high on Alexander Nylander anyway. Just know that he has that injury and don't draft him. Alright, so next on my do not draft list, guys, is Nikita Zadorov. And he's commonly drafted quite early in Yahoo pools, so watch out guys, because he's completely useless outside of Bangers leagues. The only reason he's commonly drafted in Yahoo pools is because of these Bangers leagues, and Zadorov finished 7th overall in the entire league last year. So if you're in a Bangers league, go ahead and draft him, but he's not going to get you any actual points, so do not draft him in standard leagues. And last but not least, I shouldn't have to tell you not to draft him, but it's Brent Seabrook. He hasn't been very good for many years now, and if you're banking on him returning to his form that he was many years ago, you're only fooling yourself. Now that we're done with our do not draft list, let's jump right into our draft list. And first on that list, guys, is Patrick Kane. And I don't think I have to tell you that Patrick Kane is a really good draft option. I think you already know that if you know anything about hockey. He's just a phenomenal player, and he'll easily hit 70 points in this 56-game schedule, if not much more. So next on the list, guys, is Alex DeBrincat, and he had quite a nice season last year. He picked up 42 points in 54 games last year, which is pretty good. It's approaching that point per game pace, and I expect very similar numbers for him this year, considering that the schedule is about the amount of games that he ended up playing last year. The only thing though is his shooting percentage was actually a little bit low, so that's going to go up just a little bit, so he might get a few more goals than he did last year. So next on the list, guys, is Dominik Kubalik, and to me he might be ranked a little bit high. The reason for this is because of his shooting percentage of over 19% from last year, which is super unsustainable. There's no way he's going to be scoring on 1 out of every 5 shots he takes. But he's skating on that top line with Alex DeBrincat and Jonathan Toews, so I don't really expect his numbers to dip that much. So next on the list, guys, is Jonathan Toews, and I don't think I have to tell you anything about Jonathan Toews. In the past, I was a little bit low on him because he would always be drafted a little bit too high, but last year he had a phenomenal season. He really rebounded. He ended up with 52 points in 65 games. He played really well, and playing alongside Kubalik and DeBrincat again, I can't really see him doing much worse, so I absolutely do not mind drafting Jonathan Toews at 115. So next on the list, guys, is Dylan Strome, and he's definitely not a must draft for me. I'm not super high on him, but he ended up with 38 points in 58 games last year, which is okay, but I think he can do a little bit better. It all depends on where he ends up playing. If he ends up playing on that third line like I project him to be, he doesn't have too much value, But if he ends up playing with Patrick Kane, obviously he gains a ridiculous amount of value playing there, and then suddenly he might be a really good pick in this range. So let's just monitor that, but I think he's a decent pick regardless, but I definitely prefer if he plays with Kane. So next on my list, guys, is my must draft of the video, and that's Kirby Dach. Last year, guys, was his rookie season. And yeah, he only got 23 points in 64 games, which isn't great, but in the playoffs he looked a lot better. He got a whole 6 points in 9 games and was skating alongside Patrick Kane the entire playoffs. In those playoffs, he was also skating on that top power play with Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews. So now it's his second year in the NHL, and I can't imagine he's going to get any worse. He's just going to get better and better every single year, and skating alongside Patrick Kane on both the power play and his lines, yes please, at 211, I am absolutely drafting Kirby Dach. Next on the list, guys, is Duncan Keith, currently ranked at 239 on Yahoo's draft list, which is actually a pretty good ranking for him because he's going to be that #1 defenseman on Chicago, getting that top power play time, which is super great. Any defenseman getting top power play time is worth a draft. And at that draft price, you're getting a pretty good deal with Duncan Keith. It's a pretty deadly power play in Chicago. Of course, there's always that chance that 1 or 2 young guys really emerge in Chicago and take that spot on the top power play instead of Duncan Keith. But at the beginning of the season, I can't imagine anybody else being on that top power play. Alright guys, so you've reached the keep your eye out for list. And first on that list is Pius Suter. Pius Suter is a guy that they just signed out of Europe during the off season. And while that doesn't sound too enticing, they did the same thing last year. You know who that was, their European signing? It was Dominik Kubalik. And I don't think I have to tell you that he was fantastic last year. So maybe they found another diamond in the rough. Who knows? I'm not super high on him, but you never know, right? So it's something to monitor. Maybe don't draft him, but maybe, keep an eye out for him in the first couple of weeks. And if he's playing with Patrick Kane, why not add him to your team? What's the harm? Now, this guy, he's undrafted, but he's seen an occasional look from NHL teams. He was at the Ottawa Senators rookie camp in 2017, and he was at the New York Islanders training camp in 2018. So he's a guy who's tried to make the NHL before, but he hasn't really made it. But he looked really, really good the last couple of seasons in Europe, and I think Chicago will give him a good chance to do some real damage. So next on my keep your out for list, guys, is Ian Mitchell, and he's coming straight out of the NCAA, and he has some pretty nice numbers. He had 32 points in just 36 games as a defenseman, so he can probably bring Chicago some nice offensive talent as an offensive defenseman. I think he's going to crack the lineup this year, and on top of that, I think he's actually going to make a case and push for that top defenseman responsibilities and push for Duncan Keith's spot on that top power play. So next on this list, guys, is Adam Boqvist, and he played a good amount of the season last year. He got only 13 points in 41 games though, but guys, he was the 2018 first round draft pick, #8 overall, so this guy's only got room to grow. I think Chicago gives him a shot also on the power play like they did last. They gave him a lot of second power play time, which he didn't do much with. But if he plays a lot better than he did last year this year, I think he has a real shot of also pushing for Duncan Keith's spot on the top power play. Another defenseman, guys, to keep a lookout for is Nicolas Baudin, and he's 21 years old now, and he struggled with the Rockford Ice Hogs last year. That's their AHL team. He only got 3 goals and 15 points in 59 games, and he's really expected to be an offensive defenseman because he's only 5'11 and 168 pounds, so he's really got to rebound this year if he has any chance of being a really good Chicago Blackhawks prospect, because he was looked upon really highly before last season. So let's see if he can rebound, and maybe he'll crack the team if he does. So next on my keep your out for list, guys, is Brendan Peary, and he's a guy who's got a nasty shot. That's it though. There's nothing else to his game. He's got a great shot, but he can't do anything else. The thing is with Peary, if he even makes a team at all, he might end up playing on a really top line just because of his shot. If he ends up playing with Patrick Kane, I might give him a shot. I might look and see how he does before adding him to your team, but I might give Peary a shot. Alright guys, you've made it to the end of the YouTube video. I really appreciate you guys watching all the way through. Leave a like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Let me know how I can improve these videos. Until next time, guys, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll catch you in the next episode of Fantasy Tipped.